Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to video 16 in my series, Think and Grow Rich. And this is the last video in this series. This is the grand finale, as this is the video about the last part in Napoleon Hill's book, which is how to outwit the 6 ghosts of fear. As I was reading this last part, it seems to me as if Napoleon Hill is doing everything he can, giving us his best in order for us to actually take everything he taught us throughout this book and apply it in our life. It seems like he's urging us and pushing us into taking action so we can actually create the life that we desire to have, so we can think ourselves rich. And so this part is about the last thing we need to take into consideration in order to successfully apply all the principles in this book. So Napoleon Hill talked about the 3 enemies that stand in our way to create a life that we wish to have. And these are the 3 enemies are indecision, doubt, and fear. And these are dangerous enemies that actually feed each other and help each other grow. And often they operate in our subconscious mind without us being aware to their existence and the enormous power that we have on our life and how we influence everything we do in our life. And so it's important to bring awareness to these 3 enemies so we can know what to do in order to counteract their actions. And so the purpose of this last part in this book is to shine a light at one of these enemies, which is fear, so we can understand the causes for this fear and how to cure the 6 basic fears. So Napoleon Hill starts by specifying and naming the 6 basic fears in order of them from the most common to the least. The first one is the fear of poverty. The second one is the fear of criticism. The third one is the fear of ill health. The fourth one is the fear of loss of love. The fifth one is the fear of old age. And the last one, number 6, is the fear of death. So the good news is fears are nothing but a state of mind. And our state of mind is actually subject to control and direction. If we think about life and what we can control and what we can't control, then there is one thing that we can control no matter what. And this one thing is our thoughts, what we're thinking. And so this is great news because fears are a result of our thinking. And if we know how to counteract these fears, if we know how to change our thinking so this fear won't hold us back, then we will be free to go after the life that we want to create to ourselves. And so through this part in the book, the last part, Napoleon Hill goes through each one of these fears, explain what it is, and how you can basically analyze yourself to see if you have this fear, if this fear is controlling you and preventing you from doing what you really want to do and achieve what you wish to have. So you can counteract it with different thinking. So let's start with the fear of poverty. So basically, if you think about it, the road to poverty and the road to riches go in opposite direction. They're completely different. And so if you think all the time, I don't want to be poor, or you have this thinking that you are worried and afraid of being poor and losing money, then you'll go in the completely opposite direction to becoming rich and create a lot of wealth for yourself. And so the way to counteract it is by creating a desire. And you can go back to video number 2 to understand, to get the full instruction on how to use desire, how to create that desire and use it to create riches in your life, to create the life that you want to have. And Napoleon Hill states that basically he provides us with a map on how to think ourselves rich. And so if we fail to take an action on that, if we're not doing the right things, then we only have ourselves to blame, right? We need to take full responsibility on our life and the kind of life we create for ourselves. It's in our hands and no one else has control of it. So, and this is actually good. This is good news. It means that we can control the kind of life that we will have, which is fantastic. So the fear of poverty is a state of mind. That's it. That's all it is. And because you can control the state of mind, you can control, because you can control what you think, you can eliminate this fear. And this fear, and actually any other fears are very destructive. They are very negative. They destroy all of the good things, right? They destroy our ability to take action, to imagine and create, our ambition, our enthusiasm. And so fears are very negative thing to have. And that's why it's so important to develop awareness of the fears that are running in our subconscious mind and how we can counteract them so they won't hold us back. So Napoleon Hill goes to say that the fear of poverty is probably the most destructive out of the 6 basic fears, and therefore it's the most difficult to master. And then it goes on to provide a few things that enable you to understand whether this fear is holding you back. And this is where you need to really have courage and really look inside of yourself and be honest with yourself in terms of how you behave, the way you think, in order to develop that awareness of how much this fear resides within you and how much it influences you and the life that you have. And so here is the list of the symptoms that you need to look for when you do that self-reflection, when you look inside of yourself to understand whether this fear of poverty has taken hold on you. So the first symptom that you need to look for is indifference. And what he means by that is the lack of ambition and enthusiasm. So explore yourself and see whether you're excited about life, whether you have a lot of ambition and big goals that you want to achieve, or you lack in any ambition. The second symptom is indecision. And this is a huge one that we see throughout the book, that indecision, being indecisive, is a huge blocker to your ability to achieve any goal that you want to have. And so this is the habit of staying on the fence, not taking a clear direction. And the third symptom that Napoleon Hill shares is doubt. And this is about having excuses as to why you are not taking action, or why you're not where you want to be, or having the life that you wish to have. And this can be also expressed in the form of envy of those who are successful. Now, another symptom that you need to look for is worry. And this is expressed by finding fault in others, neglect your appearance, scolding or frowning, using alcohol or drugs, being nervous and having lack of poise. And another symptom that we need to look for when we want to check if this fear is holding us back is overcaution. And this is the tendency of looking at the negative side of every circumstances. So focusing always on the failure possibilities instead of focusing on success and what it would mean to us to succeed in that. And also waiting for the right time to put your ideas and plan into action, and being pessimistic regarding your chance of making that happen. And the last symptom that Napoleon Hill is mentioning in regarding to this fear is procrastination, which I know many people suffer from. This is a habit of putting things off for tomorrow. And there's always tomorrow, right? We can always put things off for tomorrow, even things that we should have done a year back. And so look if you are creating excuses as to why you're not acting now. And it's also expressed in a way of lack of self-confidence and lack of clear purpose, and expecting poverty instead of demanding riches. So if you need to create a clear purpose, go back to video number 2 and watch the first videos of this series, as it will help you to create a clear purpose for yourself. And now Napoleon Hill moves into the second fear, which is the fear of criticism. And if you think about what is the fear of criticism and where it's coming from, it's basically a fear that comes out of our survival instinct, because it relates to being worried about being outside of the herd. Our survival always dependent on being part of the herd and being protected by the herd. And if you're doing something else than what everyone else is doing, then you are different, and the herd might push you back, reject you, not protect you, and maybe even attack you. And so the fear of criticism coming from that survival instinct that we need to do what everyone else is doing, we need to be part of the herd, we don't want to stand out, we don't want to be different. And if you look at history, there were in our history, you can see how some men and women were actually burned or killed just because they were thinking differently and having different views. And so it's clear to see where this fear is coming from and why it is such a strong fear. And the impact of having such a fear is that it takes away your individual thinking and your ability to create to yourself the life that you truly want to have, instead of the life that are prescribed to you by society, the way that society is expecting you to live. And so here is a list of symptoms that you need to look for when you self-reflect and look whether that fear is holding you back. The first one is self-consciousness, and this you can see that by being nervous, if you're timid in conversation, and when you meet stranger, if you're not that comfortable around them and not comfortable expressing who you are. And it also expresses itself with lack of poise, which is lack of voice control and poor body posture. The other symptoms related to personality, so lack of firmness of decision, lack of personal charm, and the ability to strongly express your own opinions. It also expresses itself with agreeing with others without carefully examining their opinions and kind of exploring whether you even agree with them or disagree. And another symptoms for that fear is inferiority complex, which is about using big words in order to impress others, imitating others in dress, speech, and manners. And also another symptom for this fear is extravagance, which is the habit of spending beyond your means in order to look like others, look like your neighbors, look like the people you hang out with. And also another symptom is lack of initiative, which is the failure to embrace opportunities of self-advancement, lack of confidence in your own ideas, and also lack of ambition, which is basically, Napoleon Hill is saying it basically, it's mental and physical laziness. It's slowness in reaching decision, easily influenced by others, and the habit of criticizing people behind their backs, the habit of accepting defeat without fighting for it, and not taking the blame and responsibility for your own mistakes, for your own actions. So this is about the fear of criticism, and now we're moving into the next fear, which is the fear of ill health, which is quite easy to understand why we have this fear. So people fear of suffering from ill health and potentially dying from ill health. And this is a scary thought to many people. And this fear is so powerful that many people suffer from a condition called hypochondria. I don't know if you heard about it, but this is an anxiety disorder which is related to health. And this is people who suffer from this condition, they get very worried that they're becoming ill or about to become seriously ill. And they usually go to see the doctors quite often, sometimes imagining symptoms. And this is a reason why there is a huge industry around health, which is actually worth more than $200 billion, which is amazing. It's also important to know that today there are quite a few research papers that shows a direct link between how we think and our illness, our disease. It means that when we think very negatively, when we feel very down because of our thoughts, we feel stressed, we feel anxious, it actually causes our body to become ill. So our thoughts can create illness within our body, which is amazing to realize. And it also shows you how powerful your thinking is. So your thoughts can make you ill, and they can make you healthy, and they can make you rich. And that's why it's so important to take the time and effort to really control our thinking, to control our mind and our state of mind, because it's critical to our health, well-being, and our ability to create wealth. And you're probably very well aware that people actually die from broken heart, and it just shows how what we think and feel impacts our health. So here is a list of symptoms that you need to look for when you explore how are you impacted, or whether you're impacted by this fear of ill health. So as I mentioned, hypochondria is a big one to look for. And also something that Napoleon Hill calls self-coddling, which is the habit of using being ill as a way to cover for laziness or hide for lack of ambition. And also intemperance, which is the habit of taking painkillers or using alcohol or drugs to destroy pain instead of dealing with the root cause of this pain. And the habit of reading about different illnesses and getting worried that you might have it. Okay, so we move on to the next fear on this list, which is the fear of loss of love. And this is an obvious fear. I don't think I need to explain much about it. We all understand this fear. And Napoleon Hill mentioned that women are more susceptible to this fear than men. And here is a list of the symptoms that you need to look for when you doing your self-reflection to understand whether this fear is controlling you and holding you back. The first symptoms is jealousy. And this is the habit of being suspicious of friends and loved ones without any reasonable evidence or sufficient ground to be suspicious of them. And basically, this is general suspicion of everyone. It means that you have absolute faith in no one, basically. And the next symptom is fault finding, which is the habit of finding fault with friends, relatives, business associates, and loved ones upon the slightest provocation, or sometimes without even any cause. And the last symptoms that Napoleon Hill mentioned is gambling, which is the habit of gambling, stealing, cheating to provide money for your loved one, with a belief that you can buy love. And also it's a weakness of will, lack of self-control, and having a bad temper. So let's move on to the next fear, which is the fear of old age, which we all can understand and relate to. And that relates to the fear of ill health. Also, as we know that as we get older, we have more chance to become ill. And so these fears are kind of combined, linked to each other. And there is also the worry of poverty as a result of old age. And other contributor to this fear are the fears of losing independence and freedom. So here are the list of symptoms to look for when you're doing your self-reflection. The first one is inferiority complex, which is the tendency to slow down because of older age. You know how some people saying, I can't do it because I'm older. So you think you are not capable of doing things, less capable mentally or spiritually of doing some things. And there is also the symptoms of apologizing for being old. Maybe it takes you longer to do something, so you apologize because it's your age. And using the too old excuse, often, or sometimes you hear people saying, oh, I'm too old to learn that, or I'm too old to do that. Even though it's something that they can do, it's not something that maybe physically is difficult for them, but it's more of mental and spiritual thing, and they still say they're too old to do that. And so using that excuse or having this way of thinking is actually killing your imagination, excitement, and initiatives. And also the last symptoms is pretending to be younger. So trying to look younger than your age, which is another huge industry that probably the revenue there is around billions as well. And the last fear that Napoleon Hill talks about is the fear of death. which I don't need to explain, right? It's quite obvious why people fear death. And here is a list of symptoms you need to look for when you're doing your self-reflection to see how much this fear is influencing you. So the first one on this list is thinking about dying. So thinking about dying instead of actually making the most of your life, instead of living properly. And Napoleon Hill says that the remedy for this is having a burning desire for achievement backed by useful service to others. So when you have a burning desire to help others, you actually do something that is very impactful and positively impact the society and the people around you, then you're busy with that and you don't really think about death because all your focus is on that. So if you find that you think a lot about dying, then go back to video number 2 about desire and find your desire, find how you want to impact others and make a difference in the world, and focus on that. That will probably eliminate all your thoughts about dying. And there is the old man worry, which is being worried all the time, which destroys your self-confidence and initiative. And basically it creates an unsettled mind, which is helpless. And it's also an indecisive mind, which, as you know already, it's a big hurdle in creating a life that you wish to have. And so Napoleon Hill is recognizing that by nature, we're also susceptible to having these 6 basic fear. And therefore, we must develop this awareness of these 6 fears, and also the habit of counteract these fears by controlling our thoughts, the way we think. And to be successful, basically, you must have peace of mind. And so your success starts with your thoughts, with controlling your thoughts, with making sure that your thoughts are empowering you and not disempowering you. And thoughts that are stemming from fears are disempowering. And therefore, this is why it's so critical and so important that you'll spend time on creating awareness to your thoughts, all that noise in your head. Just pay attention, notice what's there, what are you thinking about, identify whether these thoughts are empowering or disempowering. And whenever you identify disempowering thoughts, then you need to change them to empowering thoughts. Develop that awareness, so every time they pop up, you change them until you get into the habit of thinking just empowering thoughts. And Napoleon Hill also added to this part a huge chunk, which is all about self-analysis question, and which I've added to the workbook. So I'll put the link to the workbook in the description below. So download it so you can go over all these self-analysis questions to understand where you are in terms of these 6 fears, so you can counteract these fears so they won't be holding you back. And also Napoleon Hill mentioned the common excuses that we use to hold ourselves back, to prevent ourselves from creating the life that we want to have and creating the wealth that we desire. And so I'll put in the workbook these excuses as well, so you can have a look at this list and see whether you're using them. And if you're using these excuses, then you need to stop straight away. So it's a great way to identify what's holding you back at the moment in terms of your thinking. So download the workbook. It's in the link in the description below, so you can have a look at all of that. So Napoleon Hill ends this book by reminding us basically that life is a checkboard, and the player opposite you is actually time. And if you hesitate before moving, or you neglect to move promptly because of your indecision, your man will be wide off the board by time. And so you're playing against a partner who will not tolerate indecision. And this is, I think he ended this book with this statement because he really wants to push us into taking action, because he knows that if we'll use the principles in this book, if we'll use the map that he has given us, then we can create the life that we desire. We can create wealth for ourselves, and we can enjoy our life and become very happy. And so this is why it keeps urging and pushes us into taking action, not to leave all the principles in this book as theoretical only, but implement them in your life. So this is the end of this video, and I hope you'll take action so you can think yourself rich. If you need, go back to the beginning of this video series and take all the action required and download the workbook in the link below, because you have their exercises that you can do in order to create the wealth that you desire to have.